General information, 522 indigenous peoples or communities in 20 of the 21 countries, 107 trans cross-border peoples. And then if we were to see a breakdown of the continent, not by country, but rather by geocultural regions, we would see that the Amazon region is the region that, geolinguistically and geoculturally speaking, has the greatest amount of indigenous peoples and languages as well, indigenous languages. As we'll see later, Rapa Nui in Easter Island has just one indigenous ethnicity. Now I'm going through this quite quickly. One unique feature of Latin America really has no link to Africa or Southern Pacific and Oceania, because there are more languages there than in Latin America, but it has to do with an amount of linguistic families. This is unique to Latin America on a genetic level. This is interesting when it comes to understanding the language as a human ability or skill. 72 linguistic families or language families are present in Latin America. That we don't see in any other region of the world. It is for that reason that Latin America is so very important when it comes to language studies, or studies of language as a human skill. This is owed to a number of different factors. I've chosen two factors to address. One, the amount of languages. There are families that have just one language. And you'll say, well, why is it a language family if there's just one language? Well, it's because the families have lost the rest of the members of that language family since the colonial times, and only one is left as a witness to, or that bears witness to what was earlier a broader family. Now, the Arawak family has 41 different languages within that language family, and these go through 10 different states. There is also, throughout in the continent, 30 non-classified languages, and a total of 423 languages. Now, obviously, the dialects are greater, and that would bring us over 300 if we were to include all of the dialects of those languages in question. Now, there are indigenous peoples, communities that have lost languages. Of the 522 indigenous communities or ethnicities, only 423 have maintained their languages. The rest, 43 speak some variety of Spanish, of Castilian. We should refer to the different varieties of Castilian or of Spanish. There's this idea of Latin American unity based on Spanish or Castilian is an illusion that really doesn't exist, because there are different varieties of it. The language is spoken differently throughout the continent, and this has to do also with the indigenous substrata. But 55 indigenous peoples have Portuguese as their most frequent language of most frequent use, and one indigenous group has an English Creole. Now, the rule among indigenous societies is either bilingual or multilingual, or polyglots, or multilinguals or bilingual. The monolingual reality doesn't come from the indigenous societies; it comes from the state. Now, let me move ahead quickly. Here you have a pie graph, or a pie chart, and it has shows the presence of languages spoken by indigenous peoples, and then broken down by Spanish and Portuguese as well. And then there are the geocultural regions in which there are indigenous peoples that speak just Spanish, and others in which they speak just Portuguese. Let me move through quickly before I see the red light on, or get a red card, I guess.